Hello and welcome to my channel, Escaping the Cultiverse, eh? So I sincerely hope you enjoy my videos, and I hope you find them thought-provoking. My aim is to give people an insight into the crazy world of Scientology from my viewpoint. Things happen in your brain when you're in a cult that damage and scar you, and also those who you love most. I was a different person while I was part of that group than I am now, and the recovery process has been a long road. On my channel, I want to dive into what goes on in the lower levels of Scientology and show you how, no matter where Scientology is practiced, it's all coercive and traumatizing. Since this channel is a journey out of the prison of belief, I want to share aspects of how I pulled myself out and in turn help others maybe do the same. By no means am I formally educated in the area of coercive control, but certainly I know what it's like to go down that rabbit hole of a very diabolical cult. A bit about my background. I was born in Vancouver, British Columbia, where I still live, except I'm not in the city of Vancouver. I was a Scientologist for 26 years and on staff for many of those years at the Church of Scientology of British Columbia in Canada, of course, as you can see the flags back there. Um, I left the cult in 2014, but while I was in, I held various positions within the organization, one of which was what's called the the public contact secretary. And that person actually, um, my job on in that position was to bring people into the org from the street. So we called them raw public because they were raw. They were never exposed to Scientology. So I would do what's called body routing. I would stand out on the street, hand them a pamphlet, and say, "Come on in. You can do a personality test." Anyways, that sounds a little bit like somebody who's like a cowboy, but I was good at it. And I had, usually I would fill up the table with mostly guys because I was young and blonde and cute, apparently, and guys like that. So they would all come in and do their personality tests, and we'd sell them books and do all sorts of creepy things. So after that post, I then became the staff section officer, and that was a completely different position, which it entailed taking care of the staff basically. So you got to make sure that they're doing their courses and getting that doctrine shoved down their throats. And yeah, I mean, you did a little more than just that, but yeah, you were pretty much in charge of the staff, making sure that they were taken care of. Then at one point, I was also what's called the HCO, Hubbard Communications Office COPE officer. So that's the person who is in Division 1. That's the section of the organization in charge of communications, personnel, um, ethics, justice, and that kind of stuff. And this COPE officer person would be like this sort of, what do you call it? The guy that would crack the whip, make sure everybody got their job done. And if there wasn't enough people, as it was the case in Vancouver, I would have to actually do all the jobs. So I wore a lot of hats and ran myself ragged. But I then got on to the HCO Hubbard Communications Office Area Secretary position, which was just one step above that position. So I was pretty much doing the same thing, but just called a different name. Um, and in between all that, I actually was the executive director for the evening shift of the organization. We called it the foundation. And that was not fun. And there was a lot of pressure. Pretty much, you had to keep the lights on. You had to make the money, by selling Scientology services and the counseling to people. And yeah, that's how you made the money to keep the lights on and that kind of stuff. So, one of the good things that came out of being in a cult was meeting my husband. I met him just shortly after I came back from training in 1993. I was training in LA. I didn't get very far, but I was down there for a year and a half, which was long enough. And we've been together ever since. We have two little dogs, Charlie and Merlin, and they're pretty cute little guys. They might make a cameo on one of my videos. Um, and yeah, a little bit more about my husband. He's actually the one that got me out. He he had me see the light, so to speak, that day that I decided to never go back into an org. We stayed up for like 72 hours laughing and crying and just experiencing a great amount of relief and kind of getting to know each other again. When you're in a cult, at least in my situation, you work a lot. You're on your post, you're doing your job, and when you're not doing your job, you're trying to keep a roof over your head, and that means working. And then weekends, you're actually in the org because I was on the foundation, and our hours were evenings and weekends. So I was down there evenings and weekends, so I wouldn't see my husband. And he usually did the evening shift. He is a bus driver. And he would be driving in the evening because that's where he could pick up most of those long shifts to pay for all our bills and all our Scientology services and our all our lovely donations that we were making. So yeah, we were pretty much two ships passing in the night. We live in this beautiful area of BC called the Fraser Valley, and it's nestled in between all these beautiful, majestic mountains. Right now, they're all snow capped, so it's still very beautiful. It's beautiful here in the springtime, too. If you ever have a chance to come out to BC, do it. You'll never regret it. Um, about my family, both my parents passed away, unfortunately. Um, my mom passed away when I was in Scientology, and that was really, really difficult to deal with. Um, and it was odd. You don't you don't handle death the same in Scientology as you do on the outside. And my father passed away about, I guess it's been about 3 4 years now, and that was pretty tragic because my sister had already disconnected and she didn't have a chance to say goodbye, despite me doing my best efforts to try and get her to come see him. Um, so yeah, that was yeah, so our family has shrunk, unfortunately. I do have three nephews. Anita had, that's my sister, she had three boys. She pretty much disconnected from them probably about 3 or 4 years before she passed away. And yeah, they were more or less raised in the cult, in the cultiverse, and I'm fairly certain they have suffered the effects of all the nonsense that went on there. They're all doing fine now, thank goodness, and I've sort of become their pseudo mother, which is great. Um, and one of my nephews actually has a really cool son, and he's growing up to be a really smart kid. My background is Hungarian. Both my husband and I are Hungarian, so I was sort of brought up in the culture, the Hungarian culture. I spoke my English, or Hungarian was my first language. It wasn't English, and our family was pretty close. We would speak Hungarian and eat yummy Hungarian food like goulash, and I know how to make that stuff now, so that's a bonus, and I feed my nephews that whenever they're over. Um, yeah, so it's unfortunate, but when Scientology came onto the scene, um, our family our family dynamic changed very dramatically. My father was quite antagonistic to Scientology. He knew it was no good, um, and he had other friends that pretty much told him that it was bad news. But I think closer to the end of my time in Scientology, he sort of chilled out because, you know, he just wanted to have us close, and he didn't want to cause any trouble. He had suffered a massive heart attack, and I think he was just tired and didn't want to argue about it. So it was a kind of like a we just didn't talk about it. Scientology never got mentioned. But then when I got out, we had some pretty good conversations about it. And yeah, before he passed away, we really cleared the air, and we had a pretty, pretty fantastic relationship. So I was pretty happy about that. Um, I'll probably do a separate video on all this disconnection stuff and how it affected my family, and how the DSA, or the Department of Special Affairs, which is basically the department. It's OSA, it's Office of Special Affairs at a city organization level. So they do all this pretty much the same stuff as OSA does. I don't know, they're just called something different at the city level. But yeah, so that's a whole other can of worms. So throughout my whole Scientology life, there was a lot of verbal abuse, and as a result, I suffered from trauma, although I didn't know it at the time. But that's pretty much part and parcel of Scientology doctrine. I'm currently on a journey of recovery from complex PTSD, and as part of this journey, I really wanted to expose Scientology, um, because it really is a mind bending, insane cult. And I and there's others out there. I know there's lots of others, so maybe I can get into some of that. Another purpose for this channel is I want to give others a platform to speak out and tell me their personal stories. I have quite a few friends who are Canadian who have just sort of they've just gone on with their lives but have not spoken out, and I know they would like to tell their story. um I think once they hear mine, they're going to want to speak up, because I mean every story is hair raising, I tell you. um so yeah, so that's another purpose. I want this channel to bring awareness also to the mechanics of how cults enslave you, tear your life apart. um and lastly, I'm dedicating this channel, oh, I'm gonna try not to cry because I do that so much. I want to dedicate my channel to my mom and dad, who knew better than I did that Scientology is in fact a cult, since they escaped from a communist controlled Hungary in 1956. I truly wish they were still here on this earth to see this. I think they would be proud of me. Anyways, I look forward to talking to you guys all again. Thanks for watching my video, and let's expose some cult. Okay, thanks. Bye.